Right, in my second video I'm going to be getting onto the proper computer hardware which I'm more comfortable with. Basically we got this old one. I have 4 or 5 others that I have here, and today I'm going to be taking apart this one and to show you exactly how many parts are. It's really very simple, and got this for like €10 down at the market, and basically we're just going to salvage some parts out of it, and it'll also show you how things are put together. Now they haven't changed much. If anything, the older computers are harder to take apart and put together and install than the new parts today. They're a lot easier. They just click in. These kind of have awkward kind of screws, and you'll see as we get into the video. So we'll position the camera and I'll get set. Okay, this should be a pretty good angle for you to see now. So basically, it's the same one, just on its side. There's some old junk and stuff here, but it's mainly just to get parts. Bits everywhere, the thing. It's just old cases and stuff. So now you have a thumb screw on the back, so I'll just take that off. It stays attached, but pull side. That's it, simple. Get inside. Obviously with new computers, because this one's old, I'm not too worried about it. Right, because we're not too worried about it being an old computer and all, we're not really going to be worried about getting into having these things get electric static. So you always want to keep your hands on a case, because like one static shot can fry a whole piece of equipment in here. It could destroy the whole thing. So either keep your hand on here, or as we get now, there's some equipment here. The equipment that I have, and I should probably have as well, simple wrist strap. Doesn't matter that. Now the idea is you clip this to the case, any metal exposed, not painted metal. It doesn't have any grounding to keep you safe. That's especially true if it's power supply here. I want to touch that if it's been on recently. But it'll be okay as long as there's no power inside the plug. Have the plug out, always out. Because it powers the whole section here if you have anything plugged in. Now, just take off any watch you have. Any kind of loose hanging jewellery, like necklace. Stuff like that, unless it's designed to break, because that's what happens when the electric goes through with a loose collet. They're designed to come off. But obviously you're probably not going to have that on your own. But I had mine tucked in because it's not going to reach, you know. So anyway, what I'm going to do, strip it on. Now you don't have to use them, you can use them if you want. It's just a peace of mind. Like if I was working on my own computer, there's no way I would work without it. It's one shot and you can destroy the whole thing, you know. So up to you, you want to pay €2,000 for something extra, for like a €10 strap or something off Amazon, you know. Anyway, carrying on. I had to repurpose the board in this one because it didn't work, and I replaced the board with one that I got at the market as well, believe it or not, and it runs fine, but there's no real need in having them take up space in the house, so I'm going to salvage the parts out of them. As you see, these kind of plastic things are the old style things I was talking about, which aren't really the best. So I mean, the case is no real good in this purpose, you know. It's kind of put a graphics card in there, it's not going to really fit with everything else around. And even taking these out is a pain, you know. So you can salvage screws and stuff for the future like that, because I'm only starting out, so probably end up with loads of screws, but just enough to keep you going, you know. So save space as well. It's detachable here, so you can move around further just going to get a screwdriver. This is the only tool that I'd say, because I had a terrible time seeing some of the small instructions on the motherboard for the front power switch is here, and the reset switch, all those types of switches, and the hard disk drive LED, they're all small little pieces of text on the old motherboards. The new one's kind of nice coloured, so that's even easier as well now. But even the magnifying glass there was actually useful for that. So always this small miniature precision screw set. Got them in Lidl for like €15. I think I said that before. So what you want to do is you want to match up your screws. So first, we won't be taking the screws yet. It looks like a basic Phillips screwdriver, or crosshead as they call them. Well, why is such a difference? Anyway, also you can have it to have a normal Phillips for the full size kind of screws as well if you have it lying around. I'm sure these would do fine, but it's just an easier fit and be faster altogether. Now what we start with is just the components before we touch anything. First thing you're going to see is the probably power supply and this chunk here, motherboard and that. So basically you have your fans, they plug in to the motherboard, they're powered. They can be plugged in there or through a power supply in more advanced cases, because there's no way enough power is going to go through to power big fans on the future computers. You have your cables which are on your case. These come from your buttons and your USBs and that. They all can connect into the motherboard on something called F panel, which is your front panel controllers. So you have your USBs. Now this one didn't have exactly the correct motherboard parts, because obviously they just weren't purchased and planned ahead, so just did what the best you can do. And then you have these wires, your power Molex cables. These are the old power cables. You'd now be familiar with more SATA kind of cables now. I don't think there are any in here. This is an old one. You can get converters to put them into SATA. Actually, I think there's one set. Yes, they have one, surprisingly. So you see you have the size here. Easy enough, like better streamlined. But you can get an adapter which can go in here and have a string of size. I'm surprised that's in there, actually. Anyway, basically now you have your ID cables. These are communicators. These are the old hard drives as well. So these will power them. These will be the connection to the motherboard. So you basically need two things for every component: hard drives, floppy drives, expansion drives, CD drives. Always need a power. One of these or one of these, and one of these, or a SATA cable, which they don't have here. Those cables are basically used to power and to communicate with the motherboard. So there's always two plugs out of them. That's it. That's all you need to know, is there's two. So if there's two in everything, you're fine. Now, what we'll start with then is basically there's a CPU under this fan. There's fans on here. There's sometimes fans all around the case. These ones are here. So what we'll start with, let's put this on, is this CD drives there's hard drives. I've removed this one already, but I'll show you where it went. It's simple enough. So you have your power drive, your CD drive, your CPU, and there was RAM, which there is, it's still in here, so I can show you that. And then you have just your motherboard, the I/O shield. So it's basically almost everything that would be in the computer. You can see here I already had to switch that around. There's a shield that covers them. You might be familiar with not seeing them like this, but every new motherboard you buy will come with one of them shields. Okay, so I believe we'll start with removing these communication cables. Now, inside the floppies and the CD drives and that, so the CD, it's these kind of connectors here. Very, very simple to use. Just plug in and out. The pin types here. And they're designed to be a notch here so that you can't put them on the wrong way, and you'll see by this that sometimes the older, even older cables in this would be all full, so you can put them on either way, but this clip would tell you, and it joins up with the motherboard with a little gap. There's a little hole where that can fit through, and that's the direction that it goes in. You can force it in the other way with enough force, but obviously it's not going to work. You're only going to damage the motherboard or these wires in the process. Now these are the old ones, these are practically phased out. You'll never see these in a new computer nowadays. So you just like keep a one or two as a spare, maybe if you have a customer or somebody who needs an old one replaced, or you want to do it because your friend had a bad CD drive and he doesn't have money to change it. So what I said was, you know, if he wants it in, put it in, but I put in an old CD drive from here which I just removed afterwards. We'll show that later, and I popped it into his. It's not the same colour, but at least he has one that works. It's just that the communication is a lot slower with these. There's 40 and 80 wired versions of these wires. Basically just a bit faster, you know. Kind of like nowadays when things get upgraded, like USB 2.0 and 3.0 now, you know. I heard they were going to call it 2.1, so not really. Anyway. Right, you have your CPU, like I said, your fan is here. Simply, there's a 3-pin header on the board. I'll probably take this is more accurate. See it there. Now you see you have your wire here, and it goes into the board here. Take that like this. You'll see 3 heads now. Some of them have 4, but the connection is still the same here. There's an extra circuit just here, and that 4th one allows you to control the fan speed on newer boards. You might see that now, so don't be thrown off by that. It'll still have the same gap. As you see, if you go right into that, you might be able to see, it's not really a good angle here. Right, there's the fan, there's the one beside it. There's 3. Now you see the same with the 4th pin, be on this side. That's how they connect. Same for this fan, you have the same connection. Just wiggle, it only fits on one way. Slide it there, pop it on. Simple. Now, if you look closely, this one actually does have 4 pins on it. You can see the 4th one on the left there. That is where the 4 would fit in. So this motherboard did support that, but not for the CPU. So this before they had overclocking, I imagine, for that. Fan speeds on the outside, they had the idea to put them onto the inside. So Next thing is to take the fan off. These are all different. They could be screwed in or they could be released different ways. These are screwed. Little Phillips. There's little black screws on the outside. Now when you're screwing them in, they say to take them out crossways. As in, if I screwed this one in first, I'll show you now. If I screwed that one in, then you go here, then you go here and here. Or you could go like this. Just as long as they're opposite. You don't want to put too much pressure, and you don't tighten them all the way. And when you get the 4 in, then you tighten them in the same pattern. Just so that you put even pressure on the CPU while you're putting it in, and it spreads out the thermal paste, which we can show you later. So you release those, just go straight off. There's the thermal paste that's left. Still be very sticky on your fingers. So, I mean, these are things you can possibly reuse, but you know, if you want to keep them, I suppose you could, but what I find really useful is the fans on here. You know, you could probably use them. It seems to be a ASUS, so even in a compact PC, you're getting different parts from everything. So as long as they work, that's what they'll use, you know. And it's the best way to do it. They have a latch here for securing and releasing the bottom. It's simple assembly. So it's just a matter of lining it up. Aside from that, I'll be using that. Now these are things you might find interesting. It's processors. Now you can leave them in. So the harder thing is that we'll show you that a bit later because I have to take the camera again. You simply have screws in here as well for the fan, just to remove them. So they are special fan screws sometimes. Sometimes it can be awkward with a black kind of a pad over them. It's basically, it's easy enough, you just pop them off with the side of a flat screw face or screwdriver, and you just have to give them a bit of a wedge out and out they pop, you know. It's very simple. Now, these are your fan screws, like heavy duty kind of screws you'd see. So, with your fan, simple enough, use that again. Same with this, so I'm going to remove this actually. Okay, so basically we're going to move on. Simple enough there. I'll show you the CPU later. Now you have your simple 4-pin, your big power pin. So we're nearly almost done, believe it or not, with this. Now, take this. Look at the front. It's not very good, but there is these kind of connections now for your SD cards and stuff. It's kind of surprisingly recent for this. You have your connections coming out of the case. So basically I think that's a built-in one. It's not a modular one. You don't just take it out and use it again, you know. So if you look inside, They didn't have connections for everything for that. That's one thing I didn't mention, that's a floppy disk power connector. I don't use them anymore. You have your connections here. Now, take these off. These are similar to USB connections, which I'll show you. You notice there's a pin missing. That's plugged in down here. Which can't really to focus that. No. And the next one here is kind of a greenish colour. These ones here. There's 8 over there. There was connection. Now we have the red one. Also there for an SD, I imagine. So, look here. Same kind of deal. Only fit on one match. And it says J USB 1 and then there's J USB 2, so it's USBs. So this one, black one, same deal. Black one goes into here, hopefully the top. Basically connects to this one here, USB 2.0. So there's 3.0 headers, which are different. Not in these cases, obviously, but in the future you'll see them in other videos, hopefully. Now, you have your power supply. Basically, you have your power. If you look inside the floppy here, well, the CD, you can see its connections here on the top. Those are the ones I was showing you with the communication cable earlier. And then you have, up near the top here, you can see the Molex connection. This pops in there for power. Now the other power units are these pins. It's 4 pins here. Click on only one way and pop into that. That's for the CPU's power. If you look, there is a certain shape on some of those. If you look closely, you can see the difference ridged in the top left and bottom right. That's so it can fit on one way. Now some of them, there are 8 in the future ones now, and basically you can sometimes get a 4 pin, and sometimes you can have an 8 pin as well, or one or the other, depending on the motherboard. The power now they all have for these gaming PCs and that. So I'm hoping to build myself in January, so I suggest that you could look at this and know by January what you want to do. Then you get them cheaper in the sales, you know, and deliveries will be a lot better than doing them now at Christmas too. So just what time this video. Anyway, right. You have the main power connection to the board. This powers the board. You see the big connection? You push your thumb on this, and pop, off it comes, easy. Look, you can count sometimes on the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. It's 24 pin. Now some of them old ones would have 20. This is 24. In modular ones, there are 4 that break away, so you can use that or pull them away and use them in an old one, which is a new great idea. So anyway, these power up the main board. Now if you were to test the power, anyway, like I said, you can just connect the green one to a black one, and that's the ground wire and the power on, and you can trick it by using a paper clip if you connect the two together. Now do not touch that when it's on, and do not have it plugged in at all. As you can see here, don't have anything in, and then put it in and it should power on by itself. That's the way to test it if you need to do anything while it's on, such as power up a drive for another computer or something, just for testing or whatever. You don't want to bother with a big computer case and you have just the power supply itself. You can see over there in the box, just the power supply on its own. I would use it for that. And then that's basically the connection. You can just unscrew that, it comes out. Screw this, comes out. Screw this, it'll come out. That's that simple. Now another connection we have, one more, is here. Luckily this one is connected simply. Only rose pops in one way. You see that one missing there in the bottom right, bottom left maybe. And this just connects in here to the power and the switches. There's power LED sometimes written on them. Power LED, HD, hard disk drive LED. The power button, power switch and the reset switch, and the positive and negative. You need to put them on the right way around. You just all point upwards or downwards. You work out one, you can work out the rest, and it's not a big deal. You can always go back in and turn them around again. So anyway, you have your screws here. You're just going to take those off, and there'll be a few of them on the board, and I'll show you after I've taken it off what it's like. So very simply, just take them off first. Move the wires out of your way. So some people usually leave the motherboard till last because of all the wires. Well, anyway. Simple manoeuvre. Always make sure you have your memory modules locked. You're going to take them off. That can be hard to get out the screws. So some motherboards will have support depending on the case. To make sure your case will support the type of motherboard you're getting. There's ATX, there's extended ATX, which is a new one now, and it's a bit bigger, so it's wider. And there's mini and micro ATX. There's the different sizes. Just how much space the motherboard actually takes up and has more space for functionality. Now you could get an ATX from 10 years ago and it would probably be nowhere near as good as a micro ATX now, which shows how far technology can go with these things in just 10 years, you know. It'll be 4, 5, 6 times better than the one you had. That was huge ATX. Now imagine ATX. You can add some new stuff to that. Make sure you get all the screws. Lock that in. See, the board already wants to kind of give way. You can see. And slide back. It just wants to go on its own. It's that simple. Enough, you can lift by any of the components. Try to avoid touching the board to cause problems. Now this has a mounting screw behind, which was for the CPU fan. Anyway, have those. Piece of the old case there. Very good. And you have your motherboard. Very, very simple. Now, sides for the motherboard now. There are the memory modules. Can't turn that and use your angle. Maybe that would be better. Okay. You have your memory modules. You flip the sides out all the way and it kind of pushes the modules out. See there? Always grab by the sides, unless you have the gaming ones now or the newer ones. They always have a heat sink, so you can always grab them by that. What you can do is by the sides with these. Do not touch them gold plate pins. Those are what conduct the energy and electricity and communication. So if you break those, I'm going to buy a new set.
To insert them, simply you have to look for the lining. There's DDR 1, 2, 3 and soon to be 4 coming out. And they'll only match certain boards, so you need to make sure you look at the board before you buy what kind of RAM you have. Or if you're just going to upgrade to some new RAM, best to go for that type. And the speed you want to go at. There's certain board supports certain speeds of RAM. I'm not going to go into right now. So you see there a groove, and there's a groove on this. It's black so you can't see it. But if I try to put this in the other way, it doesn't fit. And all RAM has different notches depending on the size. Some have DDR2 and 3 together, which I've seen, and they have different colours to easily mark them out, and the manual will tell you which ones are which and the best way to set them up, 2-way or 3-way configurations. You push them in, make sure you're online with them, and you push them. It can take some force now, but don't care not to break them. You hear them click like that. They click right in on their own. Don't push them in, they go in. Just like so. And that's the memory module installed. Simple, easy process. So take that out. This type of RAM. It's 512 megabytes. It's probably a bit slow for today, you know. Very small. I don't see a model there. Imagine DDR 1 or 2. So, to look here at type of board, it'll tell you sometimes on the text beside it the actual slots that they are. You should be able to see if there's anything. No, dual inline memory module, DIMM1, DIMM, written there. Probably won't be able to see. I can try. I'll see right here if it will focus. And it says DIMM1 and 2. Okay. So it doesn't really say. As you see, you have the CPU there with the cooling fan, gel, you know. And it's the conductivity for the heat. If that's not on, do not turn it on because it will overheat. Now to take that off is very simple as well. Just push this little latch that you can see here. There's a little latch. Push it down and out. And you lift it, pull it away, and it goes over and releases. You pull it all the way back. Now it's quite old, so it's going to jump. And simply lift up. You see different ones, Intel, AMD, have different pins. They have to make sure your board will fit the type of socket pins you're looking for. You see there's a way it goes on a certain way. It's denoted here by the golden arrow. You see that in the corner there. There's a line on the board which will match that arrow. So you can also check the pins where they're missing, just to check it's the right way. But there is an arrow actually in the case where that arrow would actually cover, not on the side pointing into it. You sit in gently and it should go in, and then push down, and it can take a bit of force, but not too much otherwise you've got it seated wrong and you just break the pins. That's a definite, completely no-no for that. Basically that's your ATX board, or well, it's not ATX actually, it's like mini ATX. Put that aside for now. basically we've not got much left to do. Simple enough, you have your power supply. For all your units, just grab that up. And then you have your screws on the back that hold it in place. Get those off. Now these are quite long screws for power supply. You see the rounded head on those. It's 4 of those in certain positions. They'll line up a certain way. It depends on the power supply. Sometimes they have a different position. So there's a few case fixture screw spaces that they won't line up with, depending on the model. So that's what you really want. Now, question about power supplies. I was just wondering myself, and I found out. I'm actually seeing it where they have the power feed, where they say don't skimp on the power supply, but you'd be worried about the power supply draining 1000 watts. Say you get a 1000 watt power supply constantly when it's on, and it only needs say 400 for a big powerful gaming rig, say, and you think it would use 1000, but no, it had this connection into the wall, and it just showed exactly what it was drawing, and it wasn't drawing 1000 flat, it was just drawing as it needed. So as long as you have a bit of headroom, buy as big as you want. It's not going to drain as much unless you need it, so you'll have it for the future, but don't have it too big obviously, like maybe 1000 would be the limit. Mine's an 850, but I need modular now because it won't power up the new graphics card I'm going to get in it, so we'll talk about that a bit later. Right, this is your basic power supply, simple enough, just screws here, don't touch these ones. There is a fan you can take out of here if you're ever getting rid of one, but just be careful with that because you can get electrocuted with this, so always be grounded, but probably best not just to go into it, just for a fan, you know. You can take the LEDs out, but there's no point. Pretty much now we're almost done. A few screws there. Take out the drive, you need to make sure you get the mounting screws out. Now this can be awkward with this old case. Other case you won't have this kind of stuff. There's a button here to eject the front of the case off, but sometimes you'll need to do that, but each case is different. You might be able to refer to a manual online somewhere. It tells you exactly how to do that. Different type of screw there. Only like 4 or 5 types of screws we've ever seen for these, so not too many of those. Really be awkward to get into it. I know that it's probably a trick to taking this off. Like, I haven't worked it out, and I'm not really having the case anyway, so I'm not too bothered. So, find a bit now. There you go. Now, that's simple. Take the screws out. Sometimes you have to take the other back panel off to reach around the back and unscrew that. And take this one off and the back end to get in at the back. And then instead of pulling out, it's out the front. So you slide it in the front and out the front. And it's really just that simple, you know. You have little jumpers here. You just connect two wires. This happened in the motherboard as well. Certain things, CMOS and BIOS resets and configurations and stuff for overclocking as well can be reset the CMOS by either a jumper or a simple button for overclockers nowadays. But to do that, all you have to do is take out the lithium battery. So there you have a spare drive. You can connect like that if there's a spare connection on the motherboard like my friends had. So I use that. And it's not going to be used for anything else. So that's simple to do. Basically, your CMOS would be if your BIOS was actually running quite bad, you know. You set a configuration and it kind of froze up on you. You can reset it. In the old days, what you did was you just simply took this battery out. You can still do that because it remembers the configuration settings in the menu that you set up, so it can reset them. Screw there, I didn't get. So, and you can get them out, it's easy enough to push here, pull out. And you have your standard run-of-the-mill watch lithium battery. Then the memory's reset and you just pop it back in. There's no real need here. So, but I'll keep it in here. I already have 5 or 6 of them. That would reset your CMOS and you'd be back up and running because it only remembers memory as long as there's power to it. So that's pretty much everything out of the case now. You can see it's pretty much bare. Take out fan screws and that. The old cases. Now there would be standoff screws in here, in newer cases, because it's a motherboard. You know, if you get a shock on the outside of a case, it goes straight all the way around the case. You know, electric shock because it's all metal. I'll go right into there, and there's no standoff screw. So they're basically just for either motherboard if they got electrocuted sometimes. So that's what standoffs were used for. So now I'm going to finish up and take this away. Thank you.